In 2015, research was conducted on how the acoustics of an environment can affect the performance of a musician. The results from this research suggested that there may be some degree of influence on the musician from how the environment sounds and how the environment looks. After some further research, it seems that many studios are built to capture the purest sound possible from the perspective of the engineer. However, if, as music producer Giovanni Sala suggests, your job as an engineer is to document a performance, then surely there must be some consideration of how the musician perceives their environment during the tracking stages of the production. I wanted to look into this further, and I decided to conduct some primary research into the phenomena. In the summer of 2016, I had the privilege of interviewing Italian composer Marcello Fineschi. As well as working with world-renowned record label RCA, Marcello has worked as a professional songwriter and performer for many Italian artists, including Domenico Modugno and Renzo Rubino. I asked him, based on his professional background, what his thoughts were on how the acoustics of an environment can affect the performance of a musician.
Naturalmente a livello psicologico anche come immagine è importantissimo sia per l'ascoltatore e ancora di più in una sala di registrazione per il musicista che deve suonare, perché il musicista non è una macchina, per cui ha bisogno di essere psicologicamente ben disposto, e anche l'estetica vuol dire molto, e naturalmente il suono è fondamentale come viene costruito un ambiente dove si parla di suono, insomma.
So from Marcello's perspective, it seems that the acoustics do play a fundamental role in how a musician performs. I then asked him what his opinions were on the aesthetics of an environment and if it had any impact on the performance of a musician.
Anche l'estetica del posto secondo te ha un...
L'estetica è fondamentale. Intanto deve essere un ambiente, secondo me, che ti fa sentire bene, riposante, perché l'atteggiamento psicologico di sentire la musica deve essere il più possibile staccato dalla realtà dei nostri giorni. Ti deve dare un benessere fisico anche l'ambiente in cui sei, di pace, di serenità, ecco, sì, no? Di serenità.
Per i musicisti suona bene.
Sì, è determinante secondo me questa cosa lì, perlomeno per come la sento io. Poi magari ci saranno anche dei musicisti, senz'altro, che i musicisti bravi sono sempre bene, ma insomma, se sono ben predisposti penso che rendono di più, ecco, questo sì.
Marcello seems to have conflicting ideas on how the aesthetics can affect the performance of a musician. On one hand, the aesthetics are fundamental, as the performer is only a human being. On the other hand, surely a performer should perform to the best of their abilities, no matter what. I decided to look into this further by sending off some questions to practitioners within the field of audio production. I managed to get a few words from producer George Schilling. George has worked with a variety of musicians over the years and continues to work within the field of audio production at his studio in the Cotswolds.
Drummers love being in a big reflective room. Some people prefer to feel enveloped and in a relatively dead zone for doing vocals. Kurt Cobain famously sang a Nirvana song lying on a sofa in the control room, and John Lennon did one lying on the studio floor. Fleetwood Mac's Songbird was recorded in an empty theatre, and that certainly worked out well. I guess every situation is different. Sometimes a big reflective space can be inspiring.
It seems that in George's opinion, the aesthetics and acoustics of an environment do play a part on how a musician performs. few days later, I got the chance to interview Christopher Meddings, proprietor of Noise Recording, a music studio situated in the city of Wolverhampton. Chris has built his business from the ground up and continues to work with a variety of musicians from all around the United Kingdom. Hello, my name's James Prosser. I'm here with Christopher Meddings at Noise Recording.
My name's Christopher Meddings, and I run the company Noise Recording, which is a recording studio. We record everything. Basically, if you can point a camera at it or a microphone at it, we'll record it. I'm also in a number of bands: Cost Effect, Dolmy Attack, Feed the Pony, and some tribute acts and stuff like that, and some solo projects and stuff. Producer, engineer, as you already mentioned, director, producer, script writer, script editor, cameraman, sound man on different TV projects and film projects. I definitely think the acoustical properties of a room or a building definitely have an effect on the performance. And if you're in like a large hall, it's got a lot of reverb. That could make somebody more timid. It could make somebody get more into it. You know what I mean? It can change a performance, and it can change the feel of the sound that you're getting. And it's definitely something to look out for whilst working within that environment. I think it's important to use that as an advantage. Use it to get better recordings, use it to get better performances.
Okay. I then asked Chris, disregarding acoustical properties of course, what his thoughts were on whether he thinks the aesthetics can affect the performance of a musician in the studio environment.
Definitely,
Okay.
yes. An example of which, we had a band called The Born Disaster, a metal band from the Midlands, and we were doing vocal tracking in this room. And I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but in the corners we've got different light setups, and I can change the colour of the lights to change the mood of the room. And it was a very emotional, personal song for the vocalist. It was very angry. There was a lot of hate filled in it. You know what I mean? And I just wanted to get that out of him. So we cleared all the furniture out of the room. I made sure everything was red, and then we had like pictures around stuff of stuff that was relevant to that song, and then let him rip kind of thing. And also I changed so he had a handheld mic instead of the traditional kind of surround and full condenser mic. It was just a handheld, so we could really get into it and rolling around the room and stuff. Now, if you were to put him in a little 2x2 booth, you never would have got that performance. That would have been completely different. It would have completely changed. And I know this because we already did a take beforehand in a more controlled environment, and it just didn't have the same feel. Okay. It was completely different. So I think the acoustics, sorry, not the acoustics, the aesthetics of a room are, if not as important as the acoustic properties of a room.
Okay. Fortunately, I got the chance to interview David immediately after his performance.
Well, basically, it was an emotional song anyway. Yeah. And it just added to the anger. Yeah. Just the red. Yeah. To be honest. So I was just, I was in a bit of a zone, to be honest. So I blacked out a couple of times. So.
Did you?
Yeah, so I couldn't really, you know what I mean? I'll come back on the floor. Yeah. So, we was using a handheld mic. So,
okay.
It was basically like I was playing it live.
Okay, yeah.
So but I'm more of a live vocalist anyway, so.
So Chris seems to use this information to his advantage and work with musicians on how they perceive the environment around them. So far, it seems that engineers could really benefit from this information by adapting it into their work in order to capture the best performance from the musician. After meeting with David and Chris, I got the chance to interview Callum Holmes. Callum works as a live sound technician and is also a performing musician. I asked him what his thoughts were on the topic.
My name is Callum Holmes. I am a freelance sound and video engineer and drum in my free time. And I've been in the world of sort of sound, video, AV for 10 years. I did a job in May at Birmingham Town Hall. It was a corporate gig. And obviously, if you've been to Birmingham Town Hall, it's a really big space, really high ceilings, beautiful old building. But the speakers on the stage who were doing this conference, even though as soon as I mic'd them up and they began to speak, they were instantly taken back by the natural reverb of the room. So it sort of made them hold back a little bit, so like I'd already done this same, it was a road show, so I'd already done this same gig probably about 10 times by this point with the same people. So I knew what to expect, and my desk was all programmed already out the box, you know, for show after show after show from doing the first one. And from doing that in that town hall then with that big space and that sort of that natural reverb, they didn't give me hardly any level compared to what they were giving me previously in a smaller environment when there was less sort of acoustic noise, if you will. So I would say definitely just the acoustics of the room affects how things sound, and if things sound bad, generally you don't feel like you're playing well either. But in terms of like aesthetically, what a building looks like, I couldn't care if it looks really tatty and horrible. It feels good and it sounds good, then I don't think it really matters. As long as it's not really, really bad. But generally, no, I don't. I think it does, but it shouldn't. You have to bear in mind that these sort of people are getting paid for that. So from a professional aspect, then they have a job to do. It's not a bit of fun. It doesn't matter what kit you've got, where you are, what you're using. Don't complain about it. Just get on with it.
It seems that Callum has a similar philosophy as Marcello and believes that the environment can affect the performance of a musician. However, he also believes that a professional musician should perform to the best of their abilities, no matter what. During this time, I received an email from composer and live electronic musician Nick Collins. I asked him what his thoughts were on the topic.
Obviously, there's an influence. The biggest problem I encountered recording bands in the 1980s was finding a cheap studio with live acoustics. Most engineers and producers will tell you that beautiful settings and views make for a distracted recording session, that they prefer dank, dark studios over air studios in Montserrat, for example.
Nick seems to think that there could be an influence on the musician from the surrounding environment, but unfortunately many engineers seem to disregard this aspect of a recording. I decided to conduct further primary research into the topic by experimenting with a musician to try and find out if there is some way of measuring their performance based on what they hear and what they see. Before conducting the main experiment, I needed to find out what techniques would produce the best data. For the preliminary experiment, Christopher Meddings volunteered to stand in as the participant. We tried and tested two environments. One room, which was small and acoustically dead. The other was a lower ground garage that was very open, very large, and produced very late, unintelligible reflections back to the performer.
Now my eyes are sealed shut, and my only company is silence. Now I plan your demise. I'll never sleep again. I'm lost and never found. This blood it stains my soul. Nothing cleans out the blood you need. I can destroy the dirt you leave behind.
After the preliminary experiment, I asked Chris what his thoughts were on each environment.
It's very cold and very sharp sounding, very big as well, obviously. And it's very grotty and dark and just adds to the feel of that song, which is all about dirt. So I'd say it wasn't very aesthetically pleasing, but due to the lyrical content of the vocal track, it actually helped, as it's not a very nice context for the song. So being in an unaesthetically pleasing area added to the emotion of the performance. I'd probably rate it a 2 on aesthetically pleasingness.
In September of 2016, I got the chance to conduct a series of experiments with musician Alice Truman. We chose noise recording. This was simply because of the variety of rooms that the studio had to offer, and because the preliminary experiments were also conducted there. In each environment, the participant was asked to perform 2 short pieces in succession. The 2 pieces performed were Chief O'Neill's Favourite and Rakesh Paddy. I asked Alice to rate the aesthetics of each environment on a scale between 1 and 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. I then asked her to rate the acoustics of each environment, again on a scale between 1 and 10. There were a total of 5 rooms chosen for their differences in acoustical properties and how they looked. Each room was measured for its acoustic qualities and music intelligibility. Room number 1. This room was dark, small and cramped. The materials that made up the environment were very unaesthetically pleasing and consisted of stacked chairs, tables and tarpaulin. Acoustically, the room was measured at having an average T30 of 0.214 seconds, and the music clarity of the room was actually quite positive.
No, I didn't like it especially that much, no. I'll say about 3. I didn't really notice much, but I think it was quite sort of flat, really, yeah. Definitely felt cramped and like I was worried I was going to hit the microphone or the stand or the wall. It just felt, yeah, cramped in there. And
Room number 2. This room was also dark, but very large and spacious in comparison to room 1. The materials that made up the environment were both aesthetically and unaesthetically pleasing, and consisted of parked cars, some which were nice, some which were not so nice, plumbing and garbage bins. Acoustically, the room was measured having an average T30 of 1.261 seconds. The clarity of the room was also somewhat positive, however not as positive as room number 1.
well, yeah, that was aesthetically pleasing. It looked dramatic. I liked the look of it. So I'd say, I don't know, about 7 or 8. Again, it was really good. It was inspiring. So I'd say about 7. Yeah.
Cool. Alright.
Room number 3. This room was quite small and very bright in comparison to the other environments. The materials that made up the environment were very unaesthetically pleasing and consisted of bathroom stalls, sinks, toilets and cleaning equipment. Acoustically, the room was measured having an average T30 of 0.721 seconds, which when compared to the volume of the room is very reverberant. The clarity of the room was also quite positive.
Aesthetically pleasing, I'd say about 1. Because it was very nice in there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a bit of a smell. It wasn't too bad, but so that was a bit off-putting. Well, I liked the acoustics a lot, despite it being unaesthetically pleasing. So I'd say about 9, really. I just found it really inspiring.
Great.
It just sounded interesting, so it was really nice to play. If I just ignored the fact of what it was, it was a toilet.
Room number 4. This room was very small and somewhat dark due to there being no windows and thus no natural light. The materials that made up the environment were quite aesthetically pleasing and consisted of soft furnishings, acoustic panelling and audio equipment. Acoustically, the room was measured having an average T30 of 0.205 seconds and the acoustic clarity was once again very positive.
I mean, it was quite nice. I mean, I didn't have the lamp positioned very well, so it's a bit dim, but I don't know if we can really count that because I could have just moved the lamp. So, aesthetically, but 5. Again, it's like really flat, but I could hear myself really well. So, I don't know, somewhere in the middle, about 5 is okay.
Room number 5. This room was quite large and more spacious than the other environments, with the exception to the garage, of course. Because of the large windows, this provided the room with a lot of natural light and some night views of the city. The materials that made up the environment were quite aesthetically pleasing and consisted of guitars, drums, pianos, amplifiers and a range of audio equipment. Acoustically, the room was measured at having an average T30 of 0.274 seconds, and the acoustic clarity of the room was quite positive.
Aesthetically, obviously having the thing is when I'm playing some music, I couldn't really look out of the window that well, but it feels quite open, and having that and knowing that view was there, that was quite inspiring. So aesthetically, I'd say that was about 8. But acoustically, it was okay. Wasn't that exciting acoustically, I don't think. I'd say about 6.
I asked Alice what her thoughts were on each environment and which environment she preferred aesthetically.
The garage.
The garage.
For some reason.
Okay.
I liked the sort of openness of it, and it looked dramatic having the cars there in front of you. It felt like I was in a film or something. So I liked that, yes.
Cool.
I then asked her which environment she preferred acoustically.
Can have to be the toilet.
It has to be the toilet.
Because I'm weird, yes. But, it just sounded the best to me. But yeah, I wouldn't really want to be recording there very long. It was interesting, so yeah.
The evidence shown in this documentary suggests that there is some connection between how a musician perceives their environment and the effect it has on their performance. After meeting with practitioners within the field, I have begun to generate a deeper understanding on how performers react to their environments and if there is any effect on their performance as a result. Through experimentation, we can see that there are subtle changes in the way a musician performs based on how they interpret the space around them. For further analysis, a report has been produced which illustrates a deeper and more analytical approach to the research. It is suggested that this research is open to further investigation.